MS event was 30 years ago. It was a bachelor auction. Jeff, how come no more? And at that event, I bought a man, a bachelor. Now, I was 23 years old and I had no intention of spending a whole year's worth of savings on a man, but I drank too much. And then I raised my hand at the wrong time. And the next thing I know, I was up on stage giving a rose to a stranger that I just bought. It wasn't funny at the time. But something profound happened. Well, many profound things happened, but one profound thing happened was it was the first time I had ever seen anyone with MS. After I bought the man, they had speeches, much like tonight, and a woman came on stage. She was attractive, middle-aged, and she was in a wheelchair. And she proceeded to tell us that after she was married and had her first child, she was diagnosed with MS. And it wasn't long after that that she became rapidly disabled and was now living in a nursing home. She told us that every week her family came to visit and they'd take her out for dinner. And she lived in hope. And I remember the story was captivating and it was tragic, and I thought I'd rather die than live like that. So, fast forward 4 years, I finally saved enough money for my holiday and I ended up meeting a boy in Australia. I found a sexy surfer guy who lived nowhere near the beach but way in the outback, 4 hours north of Melbourne. And then days after my first baby was born, I was in the hospital in Melbourne. And I had my neurologist tell me that I had MS, a neurological progressive disease that had no cure. And he sat there and he patted my baby's bald head and he said, "Be happy with your one child. You shouldn't have any more." Now I'm stubborn. Some people say I'm stupid. And I said, no way. That's not going to be me. I am not going to be struck down by any disease. I ended up having 3 children in 3 years. But with every single new life I brought into my world, I lost a part of mine. I lost one leg, then the other, then one arm, then the other, and then I lost the vision in my eye. I thought it must be the world telling me to stop being so blind. I was barely 30 years old. I could barely walk. I certainly wasn't riding any bikes. And I really thought this was nearly the end. I was seeing that woman constantly from that bachelor auction in my mind. And there was one incident that I remember as clear as day. We were at the beach in Australia. We drove all the way there. And I was with my 3 little kids. They were 3, 4, and 5 at the time. And just as an aside, my youngest daughter is here today, Elle. She flew in from Australia yesterday because I said, "Hey, Elle, do you want to ride a bike with me?" There she is there. So yes, I picked her up yesterday at the airport and she's a bit tired today, but she did it. So back to that beach in Australia, and it was a beautiful morning and I had my 3 kids and we started walking down the beach. But as the sun grew hotter and came up in the sky, I hit the ground. My legs just wouldn't work anymore. And my little girl ran up to me and she put her tiny hand in mine and she said, "Mommy, it's okay. I can carry you." And I looked at her and I smiled, but in my head I screamed, no, I should be carrying you. So from that moment, I really hit the cold, hard ground of reality, and I didn't want to live anymore. I was desperate. I needed to find answers. I needed to find a way out of my disaster because I didn't want to live like that woman in that wheelchair. And at the time, I was reading a book. It wasn't this one, I just wrote it. It was a book called Eat, Pray, Love. And I thought, if Elizabeth Gilbert can find peace in Gowa, perhaps I could find my own guru in Gowa, and I'd too find happiness. So I decided I'd leave my husband and my 3 kids and I'd move to India. Now, people don't do that, and thankfully I went to Melbourne, 4 hours away, and I found a Buddhist class in a little attic. So every week I drive 4 hours to Melbourne. But that first class changed my life forever. And that one thing that changed my life was Vegemite. So Vegemite, for those of you who don't know, is a revolting black paste that for some reason Australians seem to love. I hated Vegemite. But my first Buddhist class, my teacher said, you have to find something you hate, because I got there and I said, I hate my life. I hate everything about it. I'm barely 33 years old. I struggle to walk. I can barely see. I live out in the middle of nowhere. I have 3 little kids that, yeah, they're cute, but they drive me bloody crazy. I can hardly go out with them because I had 2 boys. My daughter's name's Elle, but then my other 2 boys are named Search and Destroy. And I really struggled to manage my life, and I just wanted out. And my Buddhist teacher said, you think your life sucks, but you need to change your perception, and you need to find something you hate, and you have to turn it to something you love, and you've got 1 week to do that. And so my thing was Vegemite. And so I got home that week and I asked everyone, so how do you people eat this disgusting stuff and make it taste good? And my goal was to make it my hangover food. So all week I wasn't hungover, but all week I'd practice, making my bread with butter and a little bit of Vegemite. And then as I got to the point where I didn't hate Vegemite, I realized that I could change every single thing in my life that I hated, and I could choose to love it instead. So Vegemite changed my life, and then everything changed for me. I went kamikaze on my healing, and I did everything to try to heal. And I did everything. I stopped just short of ingesting worms from some man in Calcutta. But I did the stem cells, and I did the diets, and I did the CCSVI, and I did all the DMTs, and there was nothing that I didn't try. But for the last 12 years, I have been relapse-free, and I've somehow managed to reverse all of my previous disabilities, almost. To celebrate 25 years of MS, this year I decided to climb 2 live volcanoes. Ellie happened to be visiting me in a country I live in called Vanuatu, and I'm like, come on, Elle, let's climb a volcano. It's very remote, and it was very hard. And as I was climbing up that volcano, my feet were just bloodied and blistered, and I fell to the ground. And I remember my old army sergeant. He used to stand over me and he'd say, toughen up, buttercup. And I realized I could focus on the pain in my feet, or I could focus on this tremendous feat of what I've accomplished. That I can always choose to see reasons to suffer, or I could choose reasons to be grateful. Michael J. Fox, I think, said it best when he said, If you think you've got nothing to be grateful for, take it from me. Keep looking. So we climbed that volcano, and as I stood up there with my daughter, and we were standing in what is known as the kill zone, looking down into this fiery volcano, I thought, I don't have a death wish. I have a life wish. I have found a way to master disasters because I've had so many disasters in my life that I literally wrote a book about them. I know that my happiness is no one else's responsibility. My suffering is no one else's fault. I am both the master of my disasters and I am the creator of my detonators. And I like to share with people that suffering is a choice. We can choose to suffer 12 hours, 12 days, 12 years, or a lifetime, but ultimately it's up to us how long we suffer. So coming back to that bachelor auction 30 years ago, I learned some really profound things. At the time, I was devastated that I'd spent all my money on a man. But as it turned out, the money went to a really good cause, the MS Society, a disease I eventually would have. And not only that, but it taught me about hope. Seeing that woman in a wheelchair, she still had hope. She had hope that there is an end to MS. And I don't just think there's an end to MS, I know there is. My book is called Never Let a Good Disaster Go to Waste. It's not just my memoir, but it is my war cry. That no matter what is going on in your life, you can find a reason to be grateful. So I leave you with never let a good disaster go to waste. Thank you.